Are you being all that you truly are? Are you saying yes to who you truly are? Are you living everything that's possible for you around you, or are you trying to make it what you think it should be? Those are some of the questions we're going to explore today. I'm Ravi Tangri, and this is my wonderful co-host, Holly Duckworth. Hi, Holly.
Hello, Ravi. So on today's show, we wrap up, oh my gosh, 5 amazing weeks that we have done a deep dive into a great book called The 5 Things We Cannot Change and the Happiness We Find by Embracing Them by our friend Dave Rico. And on today's show, we're going to talk about saying yes to who you are, saying yes to life, and really overcoming that place of resistance that is within us. So we've been talking, this is show number 12. We're talking about spirituality as a way of leading and a way of living in your life. And really, we're working with the show to really transition and help people understand how you can live your spirit, your heart, your energy in your work life and in your family life. So we're looking forward to some more shows this fall diving into what that looks like. And it really starts with a very fundamental yes to you knowing who you are, why you're here, your skills, your gifts, and being a big yes for yourself. I have a little note here on my computer I look at every day, and it might surprise people what it says. It actually says self first. And as you've gotten to know me a little bit on the show, or if you follow me on social media, most people know me as a very selfless person, a very giving person. And part of my own spiritual practice right now is really learning that when I am self first, that nourishes my yes to life and allows me to be more of who I am and give myself more fully into the world. So as you're looking at your yeses to life, we want to invite you to step into spirituality as defined as being something a little bit bigger than yourself. Maybe it's that energy around you, that dream you've always had for your life that gives you meaning or gives you purpose. And that idea of saying yes being, are you giving an affirmative response? One of my favorite self-help, self-care techniques is something that I learned from a teacher, Shannon O'Hurley, and she says, do you have light-filled boundaries? Meaning that you are equally the yes, and sometimes, we have to be equal in the no, because when we were saying no to someone else, we were saying yes to us. So we're going to explore that concept today of how to say yes to yourself and be self-first in a way that serves the world.
And one of the things you mentioned there, Holly, is about spirituality. And this whole show is about, there's a lot of talk about spirituality in the workplace. And it's about how do you take this sense of spirituality and actually live it in the boardroom, in the kitchen, everywhere that you have it. And if you go to definition, this definition, as we usually start with for spirituality, is a sense of connection to something bigger than ourselves. And it typically involves a search for meaning in life. So that's where the purpose comes from. And that applies for individuals personally. What is your individual sense of purpose or meaning that flows through every part of your life? It also applies to organizations. What is your shared purpose? It's interesting that I got an email this week from the Gallup organization that specifically on just how powerful purpose is in an organization. That they put some really hard numbers to increase sales, increase profitability, increase customer engagement, lower turnover, more engaged employees, fewer safety incidents. This is not just esoteric stuff out there, that the sense of being part of something greater actually delivers some solid results as you move forward. So both for yourself personally and in organizations.
Yeah, when I'm working with my coaching clients, one of the hang-ups right now is we think we have to become a spiritual person first and know all the knowing and do all the learning and read all the books and then become a spiritual person in the world. I know I'm struggling with this in my own life right now. I'm doing some more executive coaching. Do I need to go out, pause all of my coaching, go get this master's degree and certification and take all these other classes and then be a coach? And I like what Rico says here in the opening stanza of saying yes. He says, paradoxically, an unconditional yes to who I am, how others are, and the world it places me in the best position to grow. So I think spirituality, or this show Presence, is about saying yes to your own personal growth development plan, whether that's moving from maybe a middle management position into C-suite roles, or maybe it's moving from being a mom and you want to live in the become a leader in the PTA. That there's no right or wrong, but it's really stepping into that place of yourself first and your highest ability to grow.
And you know what? You don't ever, you talk about, do I go out and get spiritual first and then do I mean, Holly, you've done so much work. I know we both have, right? That the thing is, you never get there. It's an ongoing, it's an endless journey. And the thing we find is that we grow with the work we do with our clients. And the interesting thing is, it makes me think of, I've been at this now, just celebrated my 24th anniversary doing this work in terms of helping organizations, individuals build strategy on purpose. And I remember very early on, someone asked me, well, what qualifies you to do that? And at that time, I was just a year or two into it, and I was a little bit stumped because there's really no degrees you can get in leading change or building a more engaged organization. And if someone asked me that question now, I'd say as well, it's because I've done it. I've done it many times. I can do it again, and I'm doing it better each time. But also, the other thing is what I brought to the game, besides hands-on experience in actually creating change in organizations, successful change, is my first career as a physicist, I learned how to work with complex situations. And what they're understanding now about organizations is it's about complexity, and it's not making it complicated. It's finding those little pressure points where you can just put little bits of energy in and change. That's something I learned to do as a physicist. Now, I didn't at that time know how to articulate that, but that was the key to my success, still is. And yet, from most traditional management perspectives, that made no sense at the time. Now people are awakening to it. So, what you said is about trusting that journey and trusting your own intuition in terms of going forward. And that's what took me into the work.
Yeah. And I would add to that, from this work we've been doing the last 5 weeks, is also in that quote, how others are. An unconditional yes to me and my life path is also the acknowledgement of the unconditional yes to who others are. And again, with that light-filled boundary, sometimes it's the light-filled boundary of saying, yes, Mary, I invite you into my circles. No, Mary, I don't invite you into my circles. And yet, I can be in this place of love, oneness, kindness, and affection for this person as they're coming and going in and out of my experience. And I love what Rico says around this idea of saying yes to life is also this awareness that adult spirituality, adult presence in work and life is a recognition that, he says on page 149, adult spirituality does not mean I am on my own. It means I am never on my own. And at work, there's a sense and acceptance of interconnectedness. And as we're stepping more and more into our yes, with the consciousness of the planet shifting, we have to step into that place of building the net of people to support us, whether we want to be the Starbucks barista, the CEO, we want to be a manager, we want to work in retail, we want to be on the PTA. We have to move from a me to a we spiritual presence in the world.
Yeah. And the thing about that is, I mean, part of being present is understanding and finding those interconnections on a much deeper level. And we can't do that if we're constantly rushing and living in our heads. We don't slow down to find those interconnections of how the system works, of how we all influence each other. And then what are the root underlying elements? that govern us all that we often don't pay attention to?
Sometimes I just say yes and I see what shows up.
Yep.
You know, this opportunity came. I hear it. I feel it. It feels good. I'm just going to say yes to it. I had that experience yesterday. I had a client or a colleague I had met in a networking event, and we had this instant sense of connection. I wasn't exactly sure how we were going to support each other in the work that we do, and yet I said yes. We had this great lunch, and on some level we recreated his business and his brand and his messaging. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't give you anything. I didn't give you anything." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" This interconnection, this me saying yes and you saying yes, built a bridge, an opportunity for me to look at what were my gifts, what were the words and the energies that I brought to him that I can now bring to other people. That saying yes in business, sometimes to that meeting you don't want to go to, that client thing clear across town, can become the biggest gift of your life if you just simply lean in and say yes.
Yeah. And the thing I think is a lot of times people are focused on the way they think it should be, right? So we're not saying yes to what is because this is missing or this is not right. This is not it. I want it to be this way instead of living now. There's a really great quote from earlier in the book that I still hang on to, that only in failed plans do we find out about a larger plan afoot that has our best interests at heart, trusting the heartfulness of the universe and discovering our spiritual potential. That we may have certain visions or plans and we may get there, but we don't always know the route. And it's what we've got. What we cannot change is what's here right now. And so instead of saying it should be different, or why isn't this, or why didn't I do that, or what if, how can we step into and embrace the now, right now? And then that's the journey that might get you where you thought you wanted to go, or somewhere even better. But the key is by starting with what is. You can't start with what isn't.
Well, we were talking about this a little before we went live today, though, too. I think there's also getting so clear in your connection to the God of your understanding, the Allah, the Buddha, the Yahweh, the whatever tradition you connect to, that you know that good is present in the universe, present again, that it's also present within you. And so therefore you are whole, perfect, and complete, and there's nothing lacking. That which you seek is already within you and is wanting to come into your life expression. That's the saying yes. Funny experience this week. A few weeks ago, I whispered to the universe I was lacking. I needed new headshot photos. And I'm kind of not in a place right now where I just really wanted to drop $500 to $1,000 on headshot photos. I'm like, okay, well, if I need them, I need them. If I don't, I don't. I have to accept that these are the photos that I have right now, and I'm going to allow this new marketing campaign to go out with these photos. It is as it is. And yet in that sort of saying yes, okay, it is as it is, I also planted a seed that said I'm open to something greater. I'm open to something more. And this week a gentleman friend called and he needs some photos for his website. He's a photographer. Hey, can I do your headshot photos for free? Well, that's that saying yes to the current reality and also yes to a vision of something greater. And I had a great experience doing new headshot photos that we may show on a future show, or if you're joining us for some future online classes. But that is the consciousness that we would invite you to as listeners to the show, is how can you say yes so clearly and lovingly to your current experience, but also be willing to plant that seed and plant the seed and plant the seed. I have a note here in the book. It says, just take one step to your highest and next consciousness. I was reading this morning in the Science of Mind textbook by Ernest Holmes. Humans are divine, but we will never ever evolve. But we will forever and ever evolve into newer and better states of being. Are you willing to step into your newer and better state of being? I love that word, newer
Yeah.
state of being.
Well, one of the, as you know, Holly, one of my loves is dance. And the key here to me, it's what a follow does in dance. There's a lead and a follow, and usually the lead is a man, not always, and the follow is a woman. And the lead is the one who's feeling the music and sensing how to choreograph to the music. The follow has to, within a beat or two, adapt and move with the lead. The thing is that there are some fundamentals. If you're dancing salsa, it's a 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. You know that rhythm that's there. And 95% of the time for a woman on a 1, they step back on the 1 beat. Beyond that, if you can keep the rhythm and if you can feel the lead and flow with it, then you're co-creating, but you're instantly getting what is. You can't, the follow cannot think ahead, because they're not the ones doing the choreography, it's the lead. And if you can do that, like some of the, what the dances that I enjoy the most are the follows, where it's like I can take one finger and it's like a feather. And they're just flowing. They know where it is just from the slightest movement. And that's just pure joy. And that's a co-creation that happens there. But they are opening themselves up to what is. They don't know that it's going to be a crossbody lead or a traveling left or whatever it is. And I'm not thinking those moves through. I'm feeling the music and making it happen. But they say yes to what is, and they flow with it. And that's where the real creation happens, right? When you can do that, when you can step in, get your head out of the way and say yes to the universe leading you with what is.
So let's take that same example, Ravi, and brainstorm for our audience how that would apply in a boardroom, because we're really starting to look at spirituality in a boardroom. And for some, but I think it's the bridge that you and I uniquely agree on is that same concept of a lead and a follow can happen in a boardroom. Perhaps a lead manager or a CEO presents a proposal for a major marketing initiative. And there's going to be an audience of, people in that room. Some are going to go, yes, of course, we're going to spend this money to do this project. And others are going to go straight to resistance. No, that won't get us to the end goal that we want to be in. And I think this is a call for us as conscious spiritual beings having a human experience, almost to sit back and sense that higher purpose or that higher energy in the room. That's why when I work with my clients, we always go back to vision, values, voice. And how is it Miss Obama said that this week, when they go low, we go high? That if people are going low in the muddied water of a decision in a boardroom, yes, no, how we're going to spend money, how we're going to spend resources, how can you take yourself out of it, go back to the sense of higher purpose energetically, and bring your presence into the room as peace, as joy, as love, as positivity to support that decision, whatever the decision is, without being attached to it. I think that's how your dancer is. She's seeing the higher vision of this fluid dance happening and is able to flow with that without attachment to the outcome.
And the other piece that just came to me is she trusts me as a lead. It's not just flowing with it, but she trusts me enough to let go, to see what will come, to let come. Another example that I run into a lot with my corporate clients is this whole issue of the generational differences. The baby boomers often pass a lot, and even the Gen X pass a lot of judgment on the Gen Y, the millennials, about that they have no work ethic, they're lazy, and so on and so forth, which I think is absolutely wrong. They come from a different value set and so forth. They don't believe, as boomers do, that you have to work hard to get the result. They'll find shorter ways to get there. Plus, they value life balance. It's not work-life balance, it's life balance. And they make that a priority, which changes their actions. Now, you can debate whether that's right or wrong, okay? But this is accepting what is. The fact is, right now, we are moving into the biggest labor crisis in history, where right now, for every 2 boomers leaving, there's only 1 person coming into the workforce. And because the boomers are workaholics and the younger generation are not, what's really effectively happening is that for every 3 people leaving, you're only getting 1 person coming in, okay? And so effectively 1/3 the workforce. Whether their work ethic is an issue or not is irrelevant. The point is, if you do not find ways to attract them, to draw them, give them what they value, you won't even have that 1/3 of the workforce there, and you will be out of business, plain and simple. So, you can pound your head against the wall saying this is wrong, they're not right, and pass judgment on them. Or you can say, you know what, this is what is. How do we work with this, and how do we move forward? And that's a lot of what I'm doing with clients, is saying, how do we transform our thinking as leaders to be able to embrace these values and support them, and create a place that not only where it supports them, but becomes a magnet for them where they want to come, so that we will get more than the 1 in 3.
Because you now have their head and their heart and their whole spirit. It says, I'm engaged enthusiastically in meaningful work and in meaningful projects, and that's more important now than ever before.
Absolutely.
That's enthusiastic, yes. My other quote from this morning was, words carry the mind forward to a place in thought where realization begins. So, new consciousness on the planet, be it a generational divide or not a generational divide, people are starting to get very clear about the words and the feelings and the lifestyle that they want to create. And it's a life of meaningful, enthusiastic work. And that's what we're saying yes to as spiritual beings having a human experience.
And just really quickly, because I know we need to get into tips, but one of the processes that I use is something called open space technology. And it's something that scares most people at first glance, because it is a meeting without an agenda, but everything gets done. I mean, how often are you at meetings where you're wondering, why am I sitting here? It's like, what's the point? I've got nothing to contribute. That happens daily for most people. But what open space is, it allows people to call meetings on the topics they're passionate about. And people go to those meetings where they have passion, where they have energy, either where they have something to contribute or where they're going to get something back. They have that freedom to go. And there's 4 principles of open space that I absolutely love, that liberates everything. It's whoever comes to your meeting is the right people. You could spend time saying, oh, so-and-so should have been, you know what? This is what is. Suck it up, buttercup. Let's move forward. This is what happened. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. Living in what ifs and if onlys is not going to get you there. And when it starts is the right time. Sometimes things don't get going on time. It starts 15 minutes later. Okay, that's fine. Deal with it. When it's over, it's over. I mean, how often are you in a meeting that's supposed to be in an hour long? You're finished in half an hour, and yet you're still sitting there for the rest of the hour. It's silly. If it's over, it's over. Get on with it. But open space really is focused about allowing you to grab on to what is, and the results blow every organization away that I've ever worked with on this.
Well, I'm excited to give that a shot, Ravi. I think that's a great tip and a great technique. So just in the interest of time, let's share a couple quick tips on how to say yes to life. And we're starting with getting clear about your expectations, your fantasies, and your beliefs. So we would invite viewers this week to pull out your journal and write down your expectations about what should have been in an aspect of your life. And then write down maybe how those expectations serve you, because they might not.
And the key there is, it could be expectations about the way things should be at work, about the way things should be in a relationship, the way things should be with friends, whatever. But your beliefs, your fantasies about what it should be like. And then the how do they serve you? The quick question that I use that also gives power is, why is this important? And asking why is that important often helps us get to our values and our beliefs. And so what it is we really want. And we may not want that situation, but we want what that situation gives us.
Tip number 2 is write down what is. This is the date, this is the time, this is the place, these are the resources that I have, and leverage what you have, not what you don't have. I have another girlfriend, I used this yesterday, this little tip. The question was, how could all this be perfect? I was having a little bit of a life experience that was a little less than perfect. And I always laugh and I jump into that question. Okay, how could this be perfect? Okay, well, this is perfect because it's connecting me to a new person. It's giving me a new experience. It's giving me an opportunity to learn about myself, whatever that is. So, tuck that one in your back pocket. How could this be perfect? Number 3, what is working in what is that you can say yes to easily. Sometimes saying yes is just a little action. We don't have to write the entire book. We write one sentence and then a paragraph and then a chapter and the whole bit. What's, your one step toward that desired yes, that bigger goal in your life.
And if I can, Holly, on that, a lot of times what is, 90% of it may be good. And what do we obsess on? That 10% that ain't working. We totally gloss over and ignore that 90% that is so on for us. And what we focus on that 10% or 5% or 1%. So that's why it's really important to say, what can you say yes to really easily without a second thought?
And we talked earlier in the show about that yes is often the yes to learning. And so we would invite you this week as you play with your own yes to explore the learnings and opportunities that are in what is. How could your intention, your vision, your goal be served through the acceptance of what is? What more could you say yes to by saying yes to this one little experience to grow you to the next yes and the next yes and the next yes?
Yeah, and remember in the first step, it was not just to write down your expectations, your fantasies and beliefs, but to ask, what were the intentions behind them? Why are those important? How could you get those intentions? How could you get those why is it important from what is? So, it may be what you wanted just in a different way.
Fantastic. Well, Ravi, we've had a great show on saying yes, and we want to invite you, our listeners and our viewers around the world, to email us your questions, maybe send us a tweet. If you are in a place in your life where you're starting to look at your next yes, we would love to support you in that with spiritual tools, strategies, and techniques that bring you into your fullest presence, both in terms of your energetic presence in the boardroom, presence at home, or presence, presents, because we believe you, our viewers, are presence in our life, and we want you to be a great present and presence in the world and in the choices that you make for your highest and best life. So, Ravi, tell us a little bit about next week's show.
Okay, well, next month, we're going to dive into a whole new theme. This month was all about the David Rico book. Next month, we're going to dive into how do we open on different ways in terms of mind, heart, our will. The first step is opening to purpose. Remember, when we talked about spirituality, it was being part of something greater, but also having some meaning. So purpose, both individually and organizationally or for a community. What is the why behind what you do before you get to a what? So the why is what makes you get up in the morning and go, yes. And that's what we really want to connect to, is what's the why that carries us forward as we dive in. So remember, you can access these shows. You can subscribe on iTunes. The podcast is there for the audio. Just search up Presence with Holly or me. We will be posting these on our Facebook pages and the YouTube channel. Those are all there. And we will be checking in with you next Friday. So, Holly, what do you think of? How do you feel about this next month coming up?
I am excited. Open, open, open. That's my mantra. On the crazy days, I say I am open and willing. I am open and willing. And so I would invite you as we step into October to just be open and willing to all possibilities and know that your life is the continuous evolution of something newer and something better each and every day.
Great. Thank you, Holly. Thank you to our viewers, and we will see you next Friday. Have an amazing weekend. It's a glorious fall weekend here in Nova Scotia. How's it there, Holly?
The fall leaves are in full bloom. Yes.